We're back here on Wood and Sticks, recording today, of course, from the Aquarius Home Services studio. Recording on a Thursday. It's a game day. I'll be working tonight in downtown St. Paul for game number 6 of the Stanley Cup Playoff series between the Minnesota Wild and the Vegas Golden Knights. Looking forward to that, and we're going to have some really good hockey conversation and some Kentucky Derby speculation. Pucks and Ponies are the bill of fare on today's show. I am guestless today with the busy game day. Was hoping to maybe get Eddie Olchuk on for a return engagement. He's at Churchill Downs getting ready to do the NBC broadcast both tomorrow and Saturday. It didn't work out. It's fine. I've got you covered. A lot of people know that this show comes out at the end of the week on a Friday. You'll have all Friday day, all Friday evening, all Saturday morning into the afternoon to get ready for the Derby. I'm going to go horse by horse today in that race, give you some betting options, some angles that I've got into the 151st running of the Kentucky Derby. And a lot of travel recently, back and forth from Vegas. It was lovely out there, 85 and sunny, big crowds, and big excitement in this series. It's been incredible, the emotional swings of this battle between the Golden Knights and the Minnesota Wild, and none more dramatic than what we saw in Game 5. I think we're all still, at least on the Minnesota side, recovering from what looked like a potential game-winning goal late in the period with Ryan Hartman thinking he scored, surviving the first look, and was the puck kicked in, and then having to go to a second look where we find out that his line mate on that shift, Gus Nyquist, was offsides. Very unfortunate, and I certainly understand the angst on social media for Nyquist on that play. And I do think that, listen, everything gets blown out of proportion this time of year. He's trying to keep the momentum, try to keep the Wild in a situation where they've got numbers entering the zone. It ends up opening up space for Hartman to make that play, driving to the wide side and getting to the net. It's a bang-bang play, and I really have a hard time piling on one person here. I've had some people come at me on social media about some of the coaching decisions. Listen, I've been around hockey for over 50 years. I know the game as well as anybody, but I don't know enough to challenge any NHL coaching staff, especially one that I believe has done an amazing job this year in Minnesota. John Hines is up, one of the top candidates for Coach of the Year. His staff is incredible. They put a ton of time into every decision they make. They're going to put the best team on the ice, in their opinion, that gives them the best chance to win every night. And so the beauty of social media is everybody has an opinion, but I think the best part of that is that you have to put it in perspective and realize that in the end, none of us on social media, including all of us that cover these games for the various networks in town, have nearly the vast knowledge or skill set to make those intricate decisions. We'll leave that up to the actual NHL coaches and have fun with it. It's playoff hockey. Enjoy what you're getting right now, because the Wild were huge underdogs coming in. I talked about it on the show here in recent weeks. 20 analysts on ESPN, guys like Mark Messier, John Buccigross, people that have covered the game and some that have played the game and won Stanley Cups. 19 of the 20 experts picked the Vegas Golden Knights. They were 3-1 favorites in the series. They've been minus 170 or more in every game. They're minus 170 again tonight. The fact that the Wild quarters should be up 3-2 in this series is a credit to the Wild. They've played spectacular hockey. Gustafsson has been better than Adin Hill. Boldy and Kaprizov have been better than Stone and Eichel. The depth of Vegas has been a problem, and their fourth line won them that overtime game. So listen, it was always going to be a 6 or 7 game battle. We've got this right now, and enjoy what you have. And by the time you're catching this podcast, maybe it's all over and said and done. I will stand by this no matter what happens tonight. And I'm recording this about 5.5 hours before puck drop. I will look at this season as a huge step forward for Minnesota. And I know with the Suter and Parise contracts coming off the books, with Minnesota likely locking up Kirill Kaprizov long-term this summer and adding somebody in their top 6, they're going to be a better team next year than they are right now. And Zeev Boyum, who's likely not going to play tonight, will be a much better player next year when he can settle in have a preseason, have a training camp, be a year bigger and stronger and not a teenager, he'll be a better version of him. And he looks like he could be any kind of player with those offensive skills long term. So keep the faith. Try to be as positive as you can. Nothing wrong with getting disappointed when you have your heart broken. And here in Minnesota, lived here all my life, we're used to it. But celebrate what we do have. And we have a great hockey team. We have a great coach. And I think a team moving in the right direction. Vegas was one of the Cup favorites before the playoffs started. And if indeed the Wild don't get through this round, I'm not going to look at it as the same old Minnesota Wild, because it certainly hasn't been that. And when you look at the schedule they had and the season they had with the injuries they dealt with, I'm just happy that we're in the playoffs and having this opportunity, because there's nothing quite like the Stanley Cup playoffs. Speaking of great sporting events, there's nothing quite like the Kentucky Derby. We're still going to talk some Wild hockey, but we're going to give you some real in-depth analysis on the 151st running of the Kentucky Derby. They run for the Roses this weekend. We'll get into that as well in the middle portion of the show. First, though, we want to hear from our great supporters of this show. Without them, there is no Wooden Sticks. We'll start with my friends with the Minnesota Masonic Charities, headed by John Schweitz.
When people think of the Freemasons, they often think of secret handshakes and unusual hats, and of course, the pancake breakfast. Minnesota Masonic Charities would prefer that you think about the work that they do right here in our community. Places like the Masonic Cancer Center at the University of Minnesota, or the Masonic Children's Hospital and the Masonic Home in Bloomington. They are just a few examples of the important work that the Freemasons support here in Minnesota. As part of the largest fraternal organization in the world, Masons have consistently answered the call when it comes to charitable needs. I am happy that Minnesota Masonic Charities has chosen Minnesota Bound and this podcast as a place to help spread the word. We look forward to learning so much more about their many programs here in the weeks to come.
I also want to thank my dear friends with OnX Maps. I have so many friends that have great skill sets for the outdoors. I'm not one of them, but some great buddies that enjoy OnX Maps. So thank you to them for being a part of the show.
Have you ever driven past a piece of land and wondered who owns that? Or maybe you need to know exactly where a property line runs. That's where OnX Hunt comes in. And it's not just for hunters. There are folks using OnX for their jobs every day throughout the country. From farmers and ranchers mapping out their fields, wildland firefighters navigating rough terrain, to construction workers needing to know who owns what property, this app offers something for everyone. If you need the best land ownership maps, aerial imagery, and property boundaries in your pocket, OnX Hunt is the tool for the job. Try it free for 7 days. Download OnX Hunt in the app or Google Play Store, or visit onxmaps.com/hunt to get started.
And also want to thank one of the newest additions to all of us here on the Talk North Podcast Network, our dear friends over at Lexus of Wayzata and Lexus of Maplewood. Back to break down the Derby and talk more Stanley Cup playoffs after a quick break here on Wooden Sticks. Okay, we're back, and I will get into some of the storylines with the Stanley Cup playoffs from a national perspective once we go through the Kentucky Derby. I most likely won't be working this weekend, even if the Wild are victorious tonight. It's sounding more likely like ABC will have the exclusive rights to Game 7 in Vegas if it happens. So I will be watching the Kentucky Derby, and hopefully that'll lead right into Game 7 out in Las Vegas. But let's talk about the Kentucky Derby. As you know, all summer long, I work out at Canterbury Park and have worked out there for 25 years. Paul Allen, the voice of the Vikings, calls the races. I'm the guy in the paddock analyzing the races. And this weekend, we have a huge Kentucky Derby party, food trucks, live music, red carpet, selfie station, and all kinds of great entertainment options for you. Of course, our card casino, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week with blackjack, Pai-Gow, Texas Hold'em, you name it. So I'll be out there this weekend, most likely, getting ready for the Kentucky Derby. I'd like to make you some money along the way. And I think a really super intriguing running of the race. It happens Saturday, just short of 6 o'clock here in the Central Time Zone. Racing starts from Churchill Downs, our time, at 10 a.m., and there are races all day long and unbelievable betting opportunities. But if you're just going to focus on the Kentucky Derby. There are 21 possible horses to run, 20 in the main body of the field, and then the number 21 horse, who we'll get to, is a really interesting option in this race if he draws in, and he needs another horse to scratch here in the next 24 hours to make that happen. So let's talk about it. It's race 12, Churchill Downs, the Kentucky Derby on Saturday. Number 1 is a horse named Citizen Bull. He was the 2-year-old champion. Remember, for the Kentucky Derby, you must be 3 years old. It's the only time you can run for the Roses. 30,000 horses on average born in the United States every year. These are the best 20. When these guys were 2 years old, the earliest they can run, the number 1 horse, Citizen Bull, was the best of the crop. He won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile back in November to put a cap on a great 2-year-old season. He's come back with a win and a very disappointing loss last time out in the Santa Anita Derby. That loss, I think, gets a little extra light shined upon it because the winner of that race was Journalism, who we'll get to as the 8-horse and is the big favorite here for the Kentucky Derby. Citizen Bull gets a really tough post draw. The one post on most days at the racetrack in a long race is a really good thing because you can save a bunch of ground. But in the Kentucky Derby, the only race every year where we run with 20 horses in the gate, if you don't get out of that gate in good order, you can get smushed by the rest of the horses trying to cross over and get into position. So I think his jockey, Martin Garcia, is going to have to really hustle Citizen Bull out of the gate. I see a lot of speed in the race. If he's able to get a comfortable position early, whether it's on the lead or just off the front of the lead, he could be one of those sneaky long shots that gets the job done. But I have to see it to believe it from the inside post. I think they're going to have to use an awful lot of energy with Citizen Bull. And I think in the end, he'll fizzle when they turn for home. Number 2 is Neoquist. Neoquist is another horse like Citizen Bull that was compromised by this post draw. He has speed, but he's drawn inside. I think he's going to have to use a bunch of that speed. And I think those inside 2 horses likely are going to be up near the front, and along with 2 or 3 other horses that I believe are going to be sent to the front, probably up against it from a pace scenario. Stamina-wise, he looks like a horse that can get the distance. He looks like a horse that certainly is in good enough form off that Florida Derby effort last time out. He ran 3rd behind Tappan Street. But because those 2 both have speed and because they're both drawn inside, I just have my doubts with the 1 or the 2. Number 3's been getting a bunch of buzz Derby week. This is a horse called Final Gambit. Gorgeous looking gray. Machado, the regular rider, is on board for Brad Cox, the trainer, a Kentucky native, one of the best in the country. The knock against Final Gambit is he's never been on dirt. He debuted on turf last year at Churchill Downs, and then they moved to a synthetic surface at Turfway Park, where he ran his next 3 races, including the race that got him into the Kentucky Derby. Last time out, he was 15-1, and he went from last to first, and he looked incredible doing it, but he's never run on dirt. So I think he'll be charging late. I think he's a horse that should relish the distance. My biggest question will be the dirt and the kickback in the Kentucky Derby, having to pass 18 or 19 horses. That could be a challenge. I think his quality speaks for itself. This horse has the type of breeding and talent on paper to get the job done. So he's a horse I will use underneath in my exactas, tries, and superfectas. The exacta is the top 2 finishers, the trifecta is the top 3, and the superfecta is the top 4. In a race like this, if you can catch any of those bets, hundreds, maybe likely thousands of dollars in your pocket, the 3-horse Final Gambit, certainly a horse to think about in those gimmick bets, especially on the bottom side, because he'll be charging from the back of the field. Number 4 is Rodriguez. Bob Baffert, the trainer, one of the best trainers in the history of Triple Crown racing, specifically the Kentucky Derby. Mike Smith is a go-to rider in that barn. He's a long-time big money rider. Rodriguez comes off a win in New York at the Wood Memorial. He's got quality. He's got good bloodlines. His daddy, Authentic, won the Derby a handful of years ago, back during the pandemic. So Rodriguez certainly has everything you'd look for in a Triple Crown contender. But like the 1 and the 2, he's got an early front-running speed style of running, and that makes me nervous with the likely hot pace. So we'll see if he can handle the heat. We'll see if Mike Smith, his veteran jockey, can get him to maybe relax early and sit just off that pace. He's another horse like Final Gambit that I'm going to use underneath. I'm not going to use it on the win side, but I do think underneath as a trifecta or superfecta filler, he makes some sense. The 5 horse is American Promise. His trainer is D. Wayne Lucas, who's nearly 90 years old. D. Wayne Lucas had a horse win the Preakness last year, so he's still got his fastball. American Promise has done well on a wet track, and it's at least a 50% chance we're going to have some moisture at Churchill Downs on Saturday. So if the track comes up muddy, this is one of those horses in American Promise that might move up a little bit. He's a big long shot on paper. He's 30-1. As of right now, I'm not going to use him. I do think if the track is muddy, if they get a bunch of rain, you have to consider him. His daddy was Justify, and Justify won the Triple Crown, and in that sequence won the Kentucky Derby on a wet track, so that bodes well if there is moisture in the air for American Promise. A couple of horses next door in the starting gate, both in from Japan. We'll start with the longer of the two prices. Number 6, Admire Daytona. Won the UAE Derby to qualify for the Kentucky Derby, did so at 1 mile and 3/16, so really almost ran a full 1.25 miles, which none of these horses have run that far. So the fact that he won a race at nearly the distance of the Kentucky Derby certainly matters. Horses from Japan have had mixed results, but last year, Forever Young, in from Japan, was in that 3-horse photo for the victory with the eventual winner, Mystic Dan. Admire Daytona has been beat twice by the horse next to him, and that's the horse that I think, if you're going to bet a horse that ships in from Japan this year, the 7 might be the horse you go with. That's Luxor Cafe. This horse has run 4 different times on a wet track, 3 wins in a second. So the rain forecast will not bother him. He's got oodles of class. He's faced the best horses in Japan. He's beaten his fellow countryman, the 6-horse, twice in 2 different head-to-head matchups. So I absolutely think the 7 is a contender. I absolutely am going to mix him in to my exactas, trifectas, and superfectas. Here comes the big favorite. Here's where the rubber meets the road when you handicap this weekend's Kentucky Derby. It's number 8. It's Journalism, and it's a really nice racehorse. 5 starts, 4 wins. The best speed figures, which measure not only the time of the race, but the class of who the horse was facing. And Journalism has done everything right, including last time out in the Santa Anita Derby back in early April, where he had a horrible trip. Traffic issues, got bumped into the rail a couple times, and still recovered and passed the entire field in the stretch. He's going to be tough to beat. He's going to be a low price. And I guess the question as you head to the window you have to ask yourself is, in a 20-horse race, where if you ran this race 10 different times this coming Saturday, you probably get 6 or 7 different results. Do you want to swallow 3-1, maybe 2.5-1 on this horse getting the trip? If he gets the trip, he probably wins. He's got all the credentials you look for. But in a race of this caliber with this many horses, I'm going to try to beat him. I'm going to use him in my exactas, tries, and supers. He's a must include. But as far as the win betting goes with my wallet, I'm going to look somewhere else because of the price. Number 9 is Burnham Square. This is the jockey that won the race last year, Brian Hernandez. He's a regular at Churchill Downs. I think that's a huge advantage to kind of know the nuances of each racetrack. And he gave Mystic Dan the perfect ride last year. Like Mystic Dan, this horse is probably going to have to win from off the pace. Like Mystic Dan, this horse is bred to love a wet track and has experience at Churchill Downs. He finished a close 3rd there in his 2nd career start. I'm not going to use the horse, but I've got a lot of people I respect that like the horse, so certainly one to consider. He's 12-1 on the morning line. Number 9, Burnham Square. 10 is Grande. Grande comes in from New York, ran second to the aforementioned 4-horse Rodriguez. He's only got 3 lifetime starts. He had some quality to all his starts, 2 wins in a second. His daddy was Curlin. Curlin loved a wet track. I think if it rains, he moves way up. He's got enough natural speed to stay a little closer, but doesn't need the lead. So Grande is one of those 20-1 shots that is not impossible here. But, as I decipher who I'm going to use, I've got to make hard choices. And he was a horse I looked at for a long time, but decided only 3 starts in his career, not a great deal of foundation. I'm going to try to beat him. Number 11 is Flying Mohawk. He'll be a huge price. He's a big closer. He ran behind Final Gambit last time on that synthetic surface. Like Final Gambit, he's never been on dirt, so I worry about the kickback. I think he's up against it. I don't think this horse will enjoy the surroundings come Saturday. I'm against Flying Mohawk, the 11. 12 is East Avenue, who was very ballyhooed going into the Breeders' Cup back in November. I mentioned Citizen Bull was the winner. This was the betting favorite. He had a horrendous trip. He stumbled badly out of the starting gate, got bounced around like a pinball, and never recovered. They laid him off from November to February, came back and ran a horrible race. But then last time out in Kentucky at Keeneland, he ran a bang-up race. They put the blinkers on, the blinkers of those hoods over their eyes to help the horses focus. He showed more speed. He dug in when he was hooked. He ran a great race. East Avenue is 20-1. I don't think he'll be 20-1 because he was so ballyhooed as a youngster. He's bred for a wet track. There's a lot to like about this horse, but I do think with those new blinkers, he is going to be forced to go early. And I believe in this edition of the Kentucky Derby, the pace is going to be extra spicy early. And if that's the case, I've got to try to beat East Avenue, who I think will be a victim of what could be a hot pace. 13 is Publisher. Now, this is an interesting story. His jockey is Irad Ortiz, and this guy is, if you rank jockeys right now in North America, he's at or near the top. This guy wins every big race every year, but he hasn't yet won the Derby. Neither has his trainer, Steve Asmussen. And Asmussen must like this horse a lot because this is still a maiden horse, which means the horse has yet to win a race. He qualified because he continues to be close in the biggest of races. All three of his prep races were in Arkansas. They got progressively better. 7th, then 4th, then 2nd. He's certainly trending in the right direction. He's got the right running style because he's a deep closer. So I think he can nibble. I do not think a horse is going to break their maiden in the Kentucky Derby. That's a lot to ask. And that's why you're going to get 30, 35, maybe 40-1. But I do think this horse could get a slice, even though I'm not going to use him. Number 4 is Tistastic. Tistastic is absolutely a horse on my radar. Another horse trained by Steve Asmussen, who's one of the best. The jockey, Joel Rosario, great in big-time races. Comes in off an emphatic win in the Louisiana Derby down at Fairgrounds. Big closer, speed-filled race. A lot to like. I see upside here. I see a horse with experience at Churchill Downs. He'll be far back early, but I think he's good enough, and Tistastic will be on all my tickets. Number 15 is Render Judgment. Julian Laperoux rides for trainer Kenny McPeak. Kenny McPeak won this race last year, so he's hot. He's trending in the right direction. To me, though, the horse is just too slow. 7 starts, 1 win, and against the higher quality horses, he just hasn't been close. So I'm going to draw a line through number 15 and wait for another day. I think he could be a nice horse to keep an eye on this summer, but he looks like he's in over his head on Derby Day here Saturday. 16 is Cole Battle. Cole Battle is a horse that ran a good third in the Arkansas Derby. Trainer is a long-time journeyman that's kind of been a ham and egger, so the fact that his trainer has a horse here is pretty cool. I like the horse. I don't love the horse. I think the horse has run good races. I haven't seen that greatness from him yet. If he runs his absolute best, sure, that horse could get there. But I think you're banking on an awful lot come Derby Day. And so I'm going to take a pass on Cole Battle. Number 17 is Sandman. And Sandman is the buzz horse right now. Part of it is the name, the Metallica connection. The band sent T-shirts to the entire stable of help at the barn, which I think is kind of a cool story. He's a good-looking gray. Sandman, the 17, was bred by Bob Lothenbach, who died a year and a half ago, was a dear friend of all of ours at Canterbury, gave a lot back to horse racing, and his dream was always to get to the Kentucky Derby. He does so now, but he does so watching from the heavens. Sandman has the right running style. He's a deep closer. He's got a great jockey in Jose Ortiz. He's getting bet. He's getting talked about. He's the buzz horse. And as a guy that tries to beat favorites and tries to go against the grain, I'm going to try to beat Sandman. If he wins, I'll be so happy for the Lothenbach family, for Minnesota racing. It'd be a great story. So I'll have my pom-poms out. But with my wallet, I got to take a stand against Sandman. He was a little green in the stretch last time. When I say green, he was very erratic when he won in Arkansas. He was drifting out. then drifting in. It's just a sign of a horse that's still learning, and these are young horses at age 3. So I think the early betting says he was 4 or 5 to 1, second betting favorite. And in a 20-horse field, I got to take a stand here. I can use him underneath in that 3rd or 4th slot in the try or super because he makes an awful lot of sense to come charging late, but I'm not going to pick him on top. We've come to number 18, Sovereignty, and he will be my top pick in the race. And the really cool thing for me is watching the early betting, his odds continue to drift up. He was the 5 to 1 second choice in the morning line set by a professional, but as recent as 15 minutes ago, with nearly $500,000 already in the betting pool, he was 11 to 1. Now, I don't think he goes off at 11 to 1 because he's just too strong of a horse on paper. But if we get 6, 7, 8 to 1, I mean, I'm all in. Sovereignty's been awesome. He's run 5 races, 2 wins, 2 seconds. He has a win at Churchill Downs. He's a deep closer in a speed-filled race. He's got a Hall of Fame trainer in Bill Mott and his regular rider, Junior Alvarado, back in the saddle. I can't find any negatives outside of this. He is a big, strong, huge-looking horse, and he'll likely be towards the tail of the field, which means he's going to have to pass 15, 16, 17 horses. Now, his jockey is a guy that's really good at finding space and keeping momentum, but if he gets stopped, if he runs into traffic, then that's going to be a problem. There is no room for error in a race of this caliber, but if he gets the trip, and the speed is what I think it is up front early, I think Sovereignty stampedes down the stretch and gets us all the money. My top pick, come Derby Day, number 18, Sovereignty. My sneaky long shot is right next door in the starting gate. I would way rather be outside on Derby Day than pinned inside, and watch out for number 19, Chunk of Gold. You'll get a chunk of gold if this horse gets home. 30 to 1 morning line with the early betting. Last I saw, 37 to 1 with $500,000 in the betting pool. His jockey is Jareth Loveberry, who rode at Canterbury as recent as a couple summers ago and has had 1 Kentucky Derby mount. That was 2 years ago on a horse by the name of Two Phils, who I bet, and he ran second. He ran a great race, but he ran second, and Loveberry gave him a great ride. This horse is a mid-pack stalker, so he doesn't have speed to get tangled up in what could be a hot pace, but he likely sits in a position where Loveberry can get the jump on horses like the favorite, Journalism, and like Sovereignty in some of those deep closers. So Chunk of Gold, a long shot you should not leave off your tickets. A long shot that I will leave off my tickets is number 20, Owen Almighty, speed to burn, but from the outside probably has to use it. I didn't like his last start in the Bluegrass in Kentucky. I just didn't care for the way he fizzled in the stretch, and I do think that outside post will compromise his chances. I am pitching Owen Almighty. Now, the final horse to talk about is number 21, Baeza. Baeza has the credentials. If you like Journalism, you have to like Baeza. They went toe-to-toe last time in the Santa Anita Derby, and this horse was beaten by less than a length. He has the quality. He has the bloodlines. He has the jockey. Flavian Pratt, if this horse gets in, is going to be the rider, and I think this horse is super dangerous. He'll need someone else to defect before Friday, which comes out the day of the podcast. Keep an eye on social media. If Baeza gets in, he is a major player in the Kentucky Derby. For right now, I've got the 18 as my top pick over the 19, the 8, the 14, and then I've got a question mark by the 21. I'm also going to mix in the Japanese entrant, number 7, Luxor Cafe, to my exotic wagers. Sovereignty is my top pick. I will have all my selections, all my betting strategies out on my social media platform, preferably Twitter or X. I'll have some stuff on both Facebook and Instagram, but Twitter is the place to find my stuff at Gorgamatic21, and I'll be out at Canterbury Park this weekend for the biggest Derby party in Minnesota. Come out and join us, watch and wager, and be a part of history. For details on that Derby party, head to CanterburyPark.com. Now let's talk a little hockey to close the middle segment out. We've talked a little bit about the Wild and the Golden Knights. Some series have wrapped up. I don't think a big surprise that New Jersey playing with a bunch of injuries, missing some top-end talent, could not keep up with Carolina. No surprise that Ovechkin and the Capitals dispatched of the overmatched Montreal Canadiens. In the Battle of Florida, I think we expected a longer series, but I think we all expected the Florida Panthers to prevail there. They've been to the Cup the last 2 years. These guys are battle-tested, and they're so good. So no surprise there. Getting a little interesting up there in Toronto. There are some skeletons in that closet. You know, this is a Maple Leaf team that year in and year out is one of the Cup favorites, and year in and year out breaks the hearts of their fans. Listen, they were up 3-0 in the series in the Battle of Ontario. It's 3-2. Tonight will be Game 6. I'm recording again on Thursday. I expect the Toronto Maple Leafs to survive, but I wouldn't be surprised if it went the full 7. In the West, the series have been far more competitive. We know about the Wild in Vegas. That thing hopefully is going the distance. I believe that Colorado bounces back after a horrific performance in Dallas in Game 5. That was just brutal. They played a terrible game. They couldn't defend. They couldn't stop a puck. Dallas looked like the far more prepared team and rightfully won that game. Colorado will bounce back. I think there will be a Game 7 in that series. I don't know what's happened to the LA Kings. They got off to such a good start. They had a stranglehold of the series after winning both Games 1 and Game 2. And they did so looking like a team that was on a mission. And Meltdown City, from that point on, Edmonton's won 3 in a row, including a game last time out on enemy ice. And now Edmonton's going home with a chance to wrap it up. I think McDavid and Draisaitl and that crew have found their footing after a real up-and-down regular season. Oilers went to the Cup last year. I don't think they get there this year, but I do think they get through and get past a team in the LA Kings that's going to leave this series wondering what happened because they looked really good in the first 2 games. Winnipeg held serve last night on Wednesday in Game 5. They lead 3-2. St. Louis, though, has been so good on home ice. I expect St. Louis to win and force a Game 7 there. So what fun for all of us watching the playoffs. And I think as you look at this from afar, even as a Wild fan, you get excited about what lies ahead, where this team could be going. But right now, it to me looks like the Western Conference has a real top-heavy group of teams that can all win the Cup. I look at the West with Vegas. Again, whoever comes out of this series, I think will have the upper hand against Edmonton if they survive. The Wild, and that's the cool thing about the opportunity in front of Minnesota here, is they would love to see Edmonton in a playoff series because of Brodin and Faber and how they can neutralize that top line. And you look at the last handful of years, you can go back and take a look at the numbers. Minnesota has had a ton of success against the Edmonton Oilers. And the winner of this series, I think, will give them all they want. On the other side of the bracket, I still think Dallas looks like a team that's getting healthy. And Ottinger, to me, looks like the better goaltender. So, okay, they likely survive. Dallas-Winnipeg is going to be a knockdown, drag-out, just incredible matchup. I expect the winner of that series to actually go to the Cup. To me, in the East, as good as Washington is, as good as I think Toronto is, it still goes through Florida, man. The Panthers are still the one. And they showed their class against a Tampa team that was hot down the stretch, that had plenty of Cup cred hitting the ice, including their goalie, Vasilevsky. Florida outplayed them every step of the way and was the better club. So I think it's going to be Florida again getting to the Stanley Cup, and I think on that side of the bracket, Winnipeg or Dallas looks the most likely. But I'm telling you right now, and I sit here hoping that Minnesota can force a Game 7. It's a daunting task as a big underdog to win the final 2 games of this series. But if they do, I think that'd be super intriguing to see an Edmonton-Minnesota second-round matchup. Vegas has been tough. They look like a team that will grind it out against they're not flashy. They're not overwhelming, but they just have the depth. They're pros at what they do. And, you've got a roster that for the most part, 3/4 of it has won a Stanley Cup together. So they have that cohesion right off the hop, and it shows. So there hasn't been any room for error for Minnesota. But boy, has it been a great series. Game after game after game. It's just been awesome to watch. Every game has come down to the wire. Every game has been physical. It's been fast-paced. I've loved watching it, and I think that will continue. Hopefully Minnesota can force that Game 7. Hopefully you'll stay with us. We're going to come back after a quick break. We're going to put a bow on this show and talk about some great shows coming up here into the summer on the Talk North Podcast Network. Stay tuned. And we're back on Wooden Sticks, final segment of the show. Send us some requests to my social media on X. Platform is at Gorgamatic21. We'd love some more people to be a partner on our show. Andrew Height's the guy that can get it done. We call him the White Dog for a reason. He always gets the job done. AHEYDT at talknorth.com. Maybe you've got a family or a family member or friend that has a business that needs some elevation. We'll hook you up. We'll pump it up. We'll get people to that business as quick as possible. Andrew Height will take care of you in that regard. Looking forward to a weekend of pucks and ponies. I hope the Kentucky Derby preview puts you in a position where you can make some cash. I'm hoping to see you out at Canterbury Park. I'm hoping Minnesota can force Game 7 against the Vegas Golden Knights. At some point, I've been promising all year we'll get Bill Guerin on. And as the season progressed, I wanted to wait until the end of the season to kind of put a bow on everything. Hopefully that doesn't come for a while. Whenever it does, I'm going to bang on Billy G's door. Still hoping to connect with my guy, Jules Malash, longtime North Star. And he'll be a guy that we take a look at here in the spring/summer to talk about some North Star Stanley Cup runs from years gone by. Hoping to connect with a guy like Neil Broughton. And again, any ideas you have, great guests in town. Billy Lechner's a guy on my radar, longtime coach at Hill Murray. We're going to have some great discussions with some high school coaches about how that game has changed and how that landscape continues to progress as kids start to take a look at all kinds of different options for open enrollment and leaving early. And then we'll talk to some college coaches too. I'm hoping to have Bob Motzko on this summer, talk about the portal, talk about NIL and all the different challenges these coaches face in a completely different landscape now. And another guy on my radar is the head coach at St. Thomas, Rico Blase. Looking forward to talking to him about the new arena. And as St. Thomas continues to grow a program year in, year out, the Tommies are making big strides and are going to be a major factor in college hockey for years to come. So those are some of the ideas we have. We'll take your ideas at Gorgamatic21 on Twitter as well. And we'll cheer for the Minnesota Wild tonight as I record this on a Thursday, Game 6. We're hoping for a Game 7 this weekend. A double dip. It'd be ponies and pucks with the Derby and Game 7 in Vegas. We're on a wing and a prayer. Hopefully we can get it done. Thanks for listening. I'm Kevin Gorg. This is Wooden Sticks here on the Talk North Podcast Network.